Hi, today I want to talk about decision-making styles, and I'm going to go over three common ones and talk about their strengths and weaknesses, what my preferred one is, and then kind of talk about why. So the uh, the the first one is autocratic decision-making, and that is basically where you just shoot from the hip. You don't necessarily shoot from the hip, but it's a decision that's made in comparative isolation without really seeking any information or perspective from anybody else. And it's it can be unavoidable in some situations, like when you're boots on the ground and there's some emergent situation that you have to deal with. Sometimes you'll make the call, and usually what I would do then is let people know, like, something came up, I had to make a decision right then and there. This is what I did, so at least people are aware of that. Um, but some people just feel like they know everything that they need to know to make the decision, and they don't feel like they need to talk to anybody else about it. And to me, that's kind of almost moving into like Dunning-Kruger kind of territory, in the sense that to me it just conveys an extraordinary lack of imagination. The idea that there can't possibly be anything that you don't know, or that you need to know in order to make a decision. So you just take it upon yourself to deal with it. I've never been comfortable with that kind of thing. I'm painfully aware of my own shortcomings and how much I don't know about stuff, and so I usually try to get the best information I can before I make a decision, particularly if it's an important one, or if it has serious consequences, before I actually go and make the call on something. Um, the next form of decision making is consensus based decision making. And this is basically where a group of people get together and kind of compare notes on like what they think should be done, and then basically put it to a vote. And the most popular idea is the one that gets used. And this is good in the sense that it casts a wider net for ideas, and it allows people to participate, which can be both useful and meaningful and important to people to feel like they have a voice that gets heard in the course of how things get decided. Um, However, even in that situation, the people who champion an idea that isn't the most popular one can still be disaffected by the outcome. It's also not super efficient, and sometimes things can um, kind of wander all over the place topically and not really converge on anything decisive. And and sometimes what you end up with is the lowest common denominator instead of actually like execution of a great idea. And there's pejorative terms for this, like designed by committee. There's the joke, what's a camel? And it's a horse that was designed by a committee. There are definitely some shortcomings to it, but it is empowering, and it does actually, like I said, cast a wider net for inputs. So the third form of decision making is consultative decision making, and I was doing consultative decision making before I ever knew the term. I was very happy when I eventually found out that there was a term for it, so I could tell people, like, well, this is what I'm doing and why. But the idea with consultative decision making is that you take a situation and you go to a group of people and you say, here's what I see, we need to make a decision, here's what I'm thinking, and I'd like to know what you think. And I think that consultative decision making is the best of both worlds between autocratic and consensus based, in the sense that you still cast a wide net, you still get ideas, and you get frequently, if you've got a good team, you get great ideas. I would never put together a product roadmap without doing some sort of consultative decision making, because I work with people who are very smart and very well informed. If they're working on the product, they probably have a lot of thoughts about it. They probably looked at other products and that kind of thing and had a lot of ideas and strong opinions about what would be good. And so you want to get that information. With product decisions, I don't mean to sound Steve Jobsian in the sense that like, oh, I'll make the call on this, but there are definitely situations where you will have to establish priorities and you'll have to make a decision. A lot of times consultative decision making can be like indistinguishable from consensus-based decision making if the ideas are pretty obvious and everybody pretty much agrees. You know, like if something comes up and it's a really good idea and everybody wants to do it, hooray. I think that the places where consultative decision making starts to become a little more obvious is when you make a decision that is different than the most popular one. And there may be reasons for it. Like the most popular one might be like, we'll never do consulting again, we're just going to do product stuff and we're going to give our stuff away for free. It's like, well, if you guys are partial to being paid, we can't do that. So there are definitely times where you kind of have to make the call. And one of the big problems that does come up with consultative decision making is that it is frequently mistaken for consensus-based decision making. And so people on the outside will look at it and be like, you know, you're doing design by committee. This is terribly inefficient. It's like, no, that's not what we're doing. And people who are participating in it sometimes are really taken aback that it's not consensus-based decision making. But one of the things that I've found is that if you are responsible for the consequences of, you know, the outcome of a decision, then you can't put that on somebody else. You need to actually make that decision yourself. A lot of times people will come forward and champion something that they really, really want to do, and the times that we've said, okay, we'll give it a shot, and it hasn't worked out, if it's been like, significant, you know, sometimes they've just come back and said, I'm sorry, I didn't know this was going to happen. It's like, well, what are we going to do to fix it? And they say, I don't know. I hadn't really thought that part through. And that's really bad. So, I mean, part of this is when you are responsible for the outcome, then if you make the decision, you have to realize, like I said, you're responsible for dealing with the consequences of that. And that may be something like, I'm going to make a really high bid on a project. And if we get it, we're going to be rich and we'll live like kings and this will be great. But I've definitely had situations where people have bid high and the client went with another vendor and never asked for, never mentioned a counteroffer or whatever. They were just like, we're done. And in that kind of situation, the consequence of that is that you have to find another deal, like in a hurry. And, so definitely the person who's taking the risks is the person who should make the decisions on these things. Anyways, it's, I think it's important to, know what your decision-making style is and to be able to explain it to people, to some degree to set expectations, to some degree to, just make it easier for people to understand what they're participating in and how you want things to go. And I think that's about it for today. I'd like to know if you prefer any of the other decision-making styles, why, and I think that's about it for today. There's other things to talk about, but I'm going to save it for another video. Have a good one.